Hey, everybody, I'm Shawn Parker from the Charlotte Hornets, and you are listening to PAA Game Day.
Please welcome the host of PAA Game Day and a public address announcer for Syracuse University and Colgate University, as well as the New York State Public High School Athletic Association for numerous championships, Tom Winiecki.
So welcome back, everyone, to another episode of PAA Game Day, that podcast that takes a behind-the-scenes look at professional public address announcers, to that voice that we hear all the time in the arena, but we rarely get to know. I'm your host, Tom Winiecki, and today our guest works in the NBA as the public address announcer for the Charlotte Hornets, Shawn Parker. So Shawn, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to sit with us for a bit today.
Absolutely, it is my pleasure.
Great. All right, Shawn, let's go right back to the very beginning. Back to where it all kind of started for you and your reputation in elementary school for being a bit of a talker.
Yeah, I have always been a talker. When I was in second grade, I would be in class and I would do my work. I was a pretty good student. But when I got finished with my work, the teacher, I would start talking. And I would start talking to all my friends. And, maybe I've had a little bit of ADHD or something my whole life because I just have to be busy and doing something. And
Okay.
the teacher wanted his classroom to be nice and, nice and chill. So he sent me out. He sent me to the closed circuit TV studio in our school. The teacher that was running that was his best friend. Is like, look, just keep him from underfoot until we're done with this test, then he can come back. So I would go down there and I would hang out. And one day I was down there and I started reading the newspaper. And a couple of the older kids heard me reading the newspaper and called the teacher over. And they were like, hey, you sound pretty good doing that. Do you want to read the news for our broadcast? I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it. And that started my love affair with the microphone. So ever since second grade, I have been behind somebody's mic and, just putting everything out there and have just been loving it ever since.
Now, as we were talking about how you got started with public address announcing with sports by volunteering at a local high school.
Yeah, so that's how I got started. And I would suggest this to anybody who wants to get into public address announcing. I was looking to get back into sports. I had graduated from the University of Maryland, journalism degree. I originally wanted to be a sports anchor, but I decided to get out of that. Life took me in another direction. But I decided back in 2012, I wanted to get back into sports. I wanted to do something that was my passion. So I started doing my research, and PA announcing sounded like something that was pretty cool. So I just started emailing local high schools in my area. And one of the high schools emailed me back. They were interested. They had a brand new boys and girls basketball coach. So they talked to both of them. Both of them were interested. I went in, talked to them, and they're like, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's go. And I started doing boys and girls games at Rockville High School in Rockville, Maryland for about 3 seasons. And it was great. Actually met my best friend. He was the girls basketball coach. And we'll get to him a little bit later because he's also a PA announcer as well. But, I started out, I didn't get paid money. I got paid in sodas, hot dogs, and candy bars when I first started.
Okay.
um, but I learned a lot doing that. And I would just encourage anybody who's not in the PA game, who's interested, get in at the local level, get in at the high school, the youth level. You will learn so much.
Yes.
And it'll help you when you go up the ladder and get to the college and the professional level.
Now, you also hosted a game show on top of this announcing. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, that was actually my full-time job. I was a game show host back in 2024. Yeah. So there is a company, Great Big Game Show. They're affiliated with the Escape Game. If anybody's ever played the Escape Game, they also own Great Big Game Show. So you can actually go into a retail space that has multiple studios, and you can actually have a 60-minute game show experience. So I got to guide people through a 60-minute game show experience. They played a series of mini games. We had the banter back and forth, just like just like the game show hosts on TV. I would come in and make my entrance and explain the games and crack the jokes and do all of that, and it was just the best time.
Wow. Now, with game shows and volunteering at the high school level and the people that you start to meet and the connections that you start to make, Shawn, what I've started to learn by doing this podcast and talking to folks like you is how important networking is. If you could, talk a bit about those networking connections that you've made on the way up and how they helped you in your career.
Networking, if it wasn't for networking, I wouldn't be where I am today. So when I was doing the high school announcing, I was in the Washington, D.C. area. And so I just reached out and started making connections. I sent emails out. I friended people on Facebook, and one of the people that I friended on Facebook was the then public address announcer for the Washington Wizards, Ralph Wesley. So we started chatting and talking about our background. One thing about the PA announcing industry, and at least on the professional level in the NBA, I am one of 6 African-American PA announcers in the NBA. And so there is a brotherhood within the brotherhood that, that is so important. So we started talking about our similar experiences and whatnot. And a couple of weeks after we had become friends, he reached out to me because there were a couple of jobs that he couldn't do. And he recommended me to step into those roles. So one of them was the women's professional football team in DC, the DC Divas. And so I became their public address announcer. And then George Washington University, there was an event that was there. I did that event. They invited me to audition for their men's basketball job. I didn't get it, but I became the backup for that job. And then a couple of weeks later, they offered me the volleyball job, sight unseen. They were like, Shawn, it's yours if you want it. So one thing that I can tell everybody out there who is on their journey up, if you go for an audition and if you don't get it, if they offer you to be one of the backups, do it.
Grab it,
because that could lead to a larger opportunity. One of my dear friends, Mark Fratto, who is the Wizards PA announcer, he's the Wizards and the Washington Commanders, I believe New York FC. He got the Washington Commanders job by becoming the press box PA announcer. And then when their actual PA announcer left, he was right there. They offered him the job. And there you go. So you never know, where those connections are going to lead you. And then in the NBA, I get to the NBA, I do my job, and I believe that I do my job very well. People notice. So when the Charlotte Hornets position came open, they knew about me ahead of time because my people in Minnesota, they contacted them and said, hey, this is a solid guy. You want to keep an eye out for him. So those connections are just so critical.
Yeah. Now it's interesting that you mentioned Mark Fraudo. He'll be a guest on our show later in the spring, and we are certainly going to talk about those connections and how it helped him. Sounds like just exactly how it helped you. Now you told me you had talked a little bit about jumping in, finding auditions, even if you don't get the job, keep your name in there, be a backup. When you went looking for pro auditions, you told me you did it for a bit of a different reason, not what people might typically think someone would go to a professional audition for. Talk about that a little bit.
One of the things that I consider myself to be is, a level-headed person and able to look at a situation and take perspective. And so at that point, this was 2017, I had been a PA announcer for 5 years, and I wanted to see where my skill level was compared to other PA announcers. I just wanted to see how I stacked up, what I needed to do to improve. So that's why I started going after PA auditions, because I said to myself, hey, I'm auditioning for a pro job. If I don't get it, they can tell me, hey, this is what you need to do to bring yourself up to the level to really compete. So that's why I started going for them. And as it turns out, when I got the Timberwolves job, there were 3 jobs that were open. I reached out to 2 of them because I found out about one of them the day of. So there was no way I was going to get from DC to Brooklyn that day to do the audition. But Memphis and Minnesota, those were the 2. Minnesota reached out and they said, yeah, we're having auditions. We've got slots available. Come on by. They didn't realize at the time I was in Maryland. So I actually flew up to Minnesota and took the chance. And then when I interviewed, they asked me, they said, we noticed, on your application form that you live in Maryland. Do you understand that this is a part-time seasonal job? And the thing that I told them, I think that was one thing that let them know how serious I was. I said, there are only 30 people in the world that can say that they are NBA PA announcers. Why wouldn't I try to take a shot at that? And they were like, okay, this guy is serious. And so in my life, I have now moved twice across state lines to be an NBA PA announcer. And hopefully I won't have to do that again. I want to be here in Charlotte until I decide to hang up the mic.
Yeah. Now you told me about the process in Minnesota where there were 3 rounds, and I think you said there were 400 people involved in this. And they gave you a sample script and you said, I think I read this pretty professionally. I'm pretty happy with what I did. But then they had another request for you at that Minneapolis Timberwolves audition. What was that?
So let me set the stage a little bit for everybody that's out there and for people who haven't gone through a PA announcer. So allow me to be Sophia Petrillo from Golden Girls. Picture this. So this is in Minnesota. We were in an arena. We were actually at the University of Minnesota because they were doing renovations on Target Center at the time. Yeah. So it was in the arena. They had a table set up where you came out. They had the script and everything out there. So you came out, said your name, gave them your number. I had a little number. And then the instructions were to read through the script once. If they had any notes or anything for you, they would let you know and you go again. So I read the script. They had a couple of normal reads and the starting lineup, NBA code of conduct. Did all of that. And I thought I did it very professionally and clear and whatnot. So they said, okay, Shawn, that was great. But, this is a new era of Timberwolves basketball. We've got, new uniforms, renovated Target Center. We're looking for just big, bold, over-the-top energy. So we want you to read that again. Read it like that guy in Detroit. So I'm sitting there up straight professionally. When they said that, I went, "Oh, you mean Mason?" And they were like, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, no problem." So I'm sitting there. I dropped my head. I said a little prayer, and I don't know where it came from, but it was just like, and I just let them have it. Minneapolis, it's time. They wanted to see what the top energy level that I had. So when I got finished, I went back up to leave. The people at the table up front, they were like, "Was that you just now?" And I said, "Yeah." They were like, "Holy crap, we have been sitting here for 9 hours today. You are the only person we could hear clearly from the concourse." And I said, "Really?" So this is a learning point for everybody out there when you're doing auditions. You're going to be probably in an empty arena. Don't treat it like you're in an empty arena. Mm-hmm. You're in an arena. You've got the fans. You've got music. You've got either balls bouncing, pucks that are being slapped around. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of ambient sound. You have to project over that. Even though you have a microphone and even though they're pumping your voice in there, you still have to project over that. So I was one of the few people that did that in the audition, and they noticed that, and they're like, "Okay, this is really a good baseline that we can work with." So treat it as if it were a game. If you are going for an audition, it can only help you in the long run.
Mm-hmm. And then with your interviews and auditions in Charlotte, it was a little different. You said it was a video interview, and then they called you back for an audition, and you had to call a game as part of your audition.
Yeah. So we did a video interview. I submitted an application first. I did a video interview, and then after the video interview, they did all of their interviews and they whittled it down because we also had to submit like a sample script as well. Mm-hmm. And then I went a little bit beyond. I actually sent them a video just kind of explaining, "Hey, I'm Shawn Parker. I'm the main event voice, and this is why you should pick me as your next public address announcer." And I spoke to them from my heart. I spoke about my love of PA announcing, the fact that I was friends offline with Big Pat Dowdy, who passed away, which is the reason why the Charlotte job came open. The type of announcer he was and what I was anticipating doing going in, not to replace him, but to simply continue that legacy. And I think that really spoke to them, that I was coming in with the right attitude, with the right perspective. Mm-hmm. And so after that, they chose myself and one other person. We were the finalists. Each one of us called a home preseason game. That was our audition in front of the fans. I happened to pull the New York Knicks as our opponent. And by the grace of God, the New York Knicks were almost like Minnesota Timberwolves East, because Karl Anthony Towns was there. Tom Thibodeau was the head coach. A majority of the coaching staff was in Minnesota. So I was like, wow, okay. And so it already had a familiar feel because it was the NBA, but it even had more of a familiar feel for me. So there was no nervousness, no butterflies. I just let it fly.
Now, when you got the call to saying that you got the job in Charlotte, where were you?
I was at the chiropractor's office on the table, and I had prefaced the visit by telling him, I was like, I haven't told too many people, but I'm just letting you know, I auditioned for the Charlotte Hornets job. They're supposed to be contacting me at some point today to let me know whether or not I got the job. So it could be while I'm in here. He's like, okay, you just let me know, blah, blah. So I'm sitting there giving me the adjustment. I had the phone on my stomach and it rang. And I looked, I was like, oh, this is the Hornets. I said, this is it. He was like, good luck. I'm going to step out. I got the call, and here I am.
Amazing, amazing. Now, with all the work that you put into an audition like that, and throughout your career, it sounds like that you enjoy working at it as well as enjoy performing behind the mic. The support system behind you has to be amazing. Talk about your wife, Alana, and her role in all of this.
Words can't even describe how much she has supported me and has encouraged me in this process. So when I auditioned for the Timberwolves, Alana and I had only been dating for 2 months. We had met online. We only dated for 2 months. And I told her, I'm like, hey, I'm going up here to audition, for this job in Minnesota. I said, would you have a problem if I got that job? And at the time we were doing long distance relationship. I was in Maryland. She was in Nashville. She said, it's a 2-hour flight either way. So I'm good. Okay. Let's roll. So there was that. Then the final round of the auditions in Minnesota, they made the final round for like the first week of September. Alana and I had scheduled a vacation. We were going to Miami, and it just so happened that a hurricane came through that same week. So we were like, okay, this is divine providence. We canceled those plans, canceled that flight, rebooked for Minnesota, and went up there. Then when I left Minnesota, we left for family obligations, moved to Nashville. She said, you're going to be back in the league. She said, I'm not just telling you this because I'm your wife. I believe that you're one of the best in the league. You're going to be back. So when that opportunity comes, we're going to take it. And the opportunity came, and I was like, babe, Charlotte, what do you think? She's like, let's go. Let's do it. Yeah. So that in and of itself, that just takes a weight off of you when you know that your partner is supporting you. And it's because, I pull her in. I make her a part of the decision-making process. We're a team. So I would encourage everybody out there, your significant other, if you have a significant other, bring them into the process. Let them know everything that's involved. She sees everything that's involved in doing this job. The more that they understand, the more that they are going to be with you when you say, hey, I have, these things that I need to be successful. They're going to be right there with you.
Absolutely. Great advice. Great life advice. So folks, we're going to take a time out for media. And when we come back, I'll ask Shawn about following a legend, not once, but twice. He started talking about that a minute ago, but we'll dive into that a little deeper. So we'll be right back.
www.publicaddressannouncer.org.
So we're back with our guest, Shawn Parker of the Charlotte Hornets of the NBA. So Shawn, you followed two very established public address announcers, at Minnesota with Rod Johnson and at Charlotte with Big Pat. Now, most folks, they don't want to be the guy that replaces the guy. They want to be the guy that replaces the guy who replaced the guy. Talk about your first season at both of those cities. How did the fans take to you initially?
First season in Minnesota, on the surface, going through it, everything was great. I talked to one of the super fans at the beginning of my second season there, and he was like, "Man, you're doing such a great job, the energy and everything." But he looked at me and he said, "But we didn't like you at first." And I just started laughing. I'm just like, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah, man." He's like, Rod was here for 21 years, and Rod has his style. He is energetic, but a little more reserved, a little more closer to the Lawrence Tanter type of presentation. I am just, I'm kind of in you. And he's like, "You were yelling at us and come on, target center and growling. And we didn't know how to take that at first. But we understood. Once we got used to you, we understood that that's your passion. That is how you cheer." Because I tell people all the time, I cheer with my voice. So they got used to that and they understood, and then it just flowed. In Charlotte, the thing that really helped me out was that a lot of people said that I reminded them of Big Pat with my presentation, with the inflection, with my energy. There was even one point, and I didn't realize this, there was one point where Miles Bridges went up for a huge slam, and I went, "Miles, boop, 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 Bridges." And I found out that Pat did that all the time when Miles went up for a huge dunk. So there were just these little things that I reminded people of Pat, and they were like, "You know what? This guy gets it. He's his own man, but he also understands the history and whatnot." Because that's something I'm not sure that people also realize is there in certain cities, there is a history of certain things. People associate, the 90s Bulls with Ray Clay and the whole, his whole intro. He got that, and now he got that from Tommy Edwards, who was before him in Chicago. So though it's little things like that when you bring forward, the fans remember, they appreciate, and they appreciate you carrying it forward. So in following those two, I felt that it was an honor. I felt that it was a privilege. And I just wanted to make sure that I didn't drop the ball. And I was very fortunate in Minnesota. Rod still lived in the area. He would bring his grandson to games. And so I told people that it was almost like Pope Benedict being in the building, the Pope Emeritus. It was like the PA announcer emeritus was in the building and I'm sitting in the chair. I just thought it was awesome. So I hope that I can do that for someone else when I step away from the Charlotte chair and they step in.
Now, staying with Charlotte, you talked about new ownership and how they wanted to cultivate a new atmosphere. And with that, you told me something about the type of relationship that you wanted to cultivate with the fans. What type was that? What were you going for?
I just wanted the fans to understand that it's not just a disembodied voice, the voice of God, as some people call it, talking to them in the arena, that you had somebody that was sitting there that was passionate about Charlotte Hornets basketball, that wants to see the Hornets win, that cheers along with them, that even though I can't get on the mic and be like, "Oh, ref, you blah, blah, you did such and such," there are ways that I can, articulate that I am also not happy with that call, just like they are, but still be respectful to the game. Because at the end of the day, people aren't coming to Spectrum Center to hear me. They're coming to watch them. So my job is to enhance that experience for them. So if a referee has a controversial call on a foul and I go, "Foul on 0, Miles Bridges, his second, team's third," and you can kind of hear in my voice that I'm a little bit upset, that kind of gets the crowd going, and they get into the game. So it's those little nuanced things that I want people to pick up on, appreciate, and get them into the game even more.
Yeah, that you could still be a professional, yet acknowledge through that inflection that you just demonstrated that, when you strip everything away, I'm still a fan, but I still have to be professional. And there's that line that you have to teeter back and forth on. Now,
that's right.
With that inflection you're talking about, I've heard about those little personal touches that you add, like your example of the foul that you may not have agreed with the officials call. And you told me a story about Anthony Edwards when you were in Minnesota and some other stories. Can you talk about those a little bit?
So when I was in Minnesota and they drafted Anthony Edwards, it was obvious to a lot of people this is going to be one of the cornerstones of the franchise for years to come. The 3-point call, people love 3-pointers and they are big moments in the game. So I want to make sure that the 3-point call is right because I learned early on that the players listen to the PA announcers as well. So they feed off of the energy. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They feed off of the energy. They know what you're saying and how you're saying it. So I wanted to make sure that I got his 3-point call right. And so normally when I do a 3-point call, I will do the first name and then 4-3 and kind of, lengthen it out. So I went up to him and I introduced. I said, "Hey, I'm Shawn. I'm a PA announcer. I just wanted to ask you, how would you prefer that I do your 3-point call? I've heard people call you Ant-Man. I've heard Ant. What would you prefer?" And he told me, he's like, "Well, I'm not really, I'm not really down with Ant-Man. So Ant for 3 is fine." I'm like, "Okay, no problem." And it was Ant for 3 from there. So, and also when I was in Minnesota, Taj Gibson, some of you may be familiar with him out there. He's been in I think he just retired, but he had been in the NBA for almost 20 years. And he was the only player in the NBA, I think the only player in NBA history that wore number 67. So in my intro of him, I would go, "The NBA's only 67. And he loved that. I was sitting at the table one day and he walked past and I'm like, "Hey, Taj, what's up?" And he looked at me and pointed, "The NBA's only 67. And it just so happened when I got here to Charlotte, he was on the roster. So when he saw me, he lit up because he knew he was getting his intro back. So it's just one of those things, those, like you said, those little personal touches, those things that you do at the beginning of a game in Charlotte. Right before the tip, I will go, "All right, Spectrum Center, it's game time." They actually created a graphic that says it's game time to put up on the screen when I do that. So it's just those little things that just add to the game experience. And that's something the NBA is really big on, is the game experience for the fans.
Yes, yes. Now, a little bit of a sidebar to that game experience. I think I'd be a little remiss if I didn't ask you about the bow ties and the shoes.
So as we are recording this right now, we have a game tonight. We play the Orlando Magic. So give me 2 seconds. I have my outfit. Here you go. The bow tie.
All right.
And the shoes.
Fantastic.
There you go. So yeah, it is a part of the package, and people have really come to love that. My very first game, I wore a regular necktie, and my uncle had given me one of those clip-on bow ties and a pocket square, and I said, "You know what? I need to wear this, to show that I appreciated it," which I did, and to say, "Hey, Unc, I'm wearing your stuff in the arena."
Yeah.
I wore it. And everybody loved it. They were like, "Shawn, that's your look. You should do that from now on." And I'm like, "Really?" And I hadn't worn a bow tie since I was in children's choir when I was 6 years old.
But
I was like, "Okay, well, let me do that. And I actually went online, taught myself how to tie a real bow tie. So now I can do it without being in front of the mirror. And it's just one of those things that I look forward to, saying, okay, what combination can I come up with for
Okay.
this game? And people really look for it. And now the Hornets have even given me my own logo with a bow tie in it that they put up on the board when they introduced me. So it's really a blessing, and I love it.
But to go back earlier, you talk about the players actually, they pay attention to it. Other people are paying attention to you behind the mic. You're the PA announcer, and he does this, this, and this, and he's our guy.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be a better compliment than that. Now, as being a PA announcer at the NBA, you must run into all kinds of people. Tell us about a meeting you had with a certain rapper.
I laugh every time I think about it. So being a PA announcer, when halftime acts come in, they rehearse, and a lot of times they're incorporating the dance team and the hype squad and other members of the entertainment group. Well, being the PA announcer, I'm not involved in that. So a lot of times I don't get to meet the halftime performers like everybody else does. Well, one particular halftime performance that we had, Lil Jon came and performed at halftime. And I was like, I've got to meet Lil Jon before I get out of this building. So as I was leaving, normally I go through the concourse, but this night I went the back way. I went down the back hallway where the locker rooms are and whatnot. And he happened to be standing outside of his dressing room talking to a couple of people. So I walked up to him. I introduced myself and I said, man, you really, you did a great job for halftime. You really just, tore the house down and everything. And so he was like, man, I appreciate that. And I had an overcoat on. It was cold outside. He was like, I got an overcoat just like this. And he was like, and I said, for real? And he said, no, I'm just effing with you. And started laughing. And I couldn't help but laugh. I'm like, okay, you got me. And so, we dapped up and gave him a hug. And he was like, it's good to meet you. I appreciate it. And it kept going on. But it was just, one of those little things, one of those little meetings that you're just like, you don't expect, a big time rapper to joke with you like that.
Right.
I got to meet Morris Day too, from Morris Day and the Time, Prince and everything.
Okay.
Met him backstage once, and he looked at him. Morris Day, he does the outfits and everything with the shoes. He looked at me and he was like, bro, where did you get those shoes? I got to get some of those. And I'm just like, Morris Day wants fashion advice from me? It's just one of those surreal things. And, and another one of those reasons I just absolutely love and cherish my time in the NBA.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, folks, we're going to take another quick break. And when we return, we'll hear Shawn talk about the different styles of public address announcers in the NBA. You heard him kind of tease us with it a few minutes ago. Oh, and how he also was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Announcing the Game is a free resource to public address announcers to take you through how to take your skills to the next level. A simple click on the sport gives you free access to a video that goes over terminology and rules specific to a lot of sports. So take a look. See if we can help you improve your skills. So we're back, everybody, with Shawn Parker from the Charlotte Hornets. Now, Shawn, you mentioned earlier how you're part of an entertainment package at the NBA. Now, as a casual fan, maybe not an NBA fan, but a casual sports fan, there's that typical NBA PA announcer. But you know that that's not always the case. You threw out names like Lawrence Tanner with the Lakers, and there's some other people. If you could talk about those and how they're specific to the cities and the teams that they work for.
Yeah, so, different teams are looking for different entertainment experiences. Not every city is the same. So my over-the-top growling style might not be for some cities. For
Okay.
example, and I mentioned Lawrence Tanter earlier. Lawrence Tanter has been the PA announcer for the Los Angeles Lakers, I think, since 1979 or something like that. He was a smooth jazz radio host. So his style, ladies and gentlemen, introducing the world champion Los Angeles Lakers. You're not gonna get that over the top. It's very smooth. Even when they win a championship, it's still a very smooth delivery. Whereas you have myself, you have John Mason in Detroit, that are just, over the top and, have a little bit of swag in it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Michael Biamonte down in Miami with his 2-minute call for each quarter. And he's hitting them with dos minutos because he is in Miami and a heavy Hispanic population. So there are just those little personal touches, those little regional touches that really differentiates announcers in different cities. And then you mentioned the typical NBA announcer. There is a school of thought in public address announcing, which I completely understand and respect when you are on the youth level, when you're at the high school level, that, you do have a home and away team, but you want to be kind of more neutral, more respectful of everybody. You're not trying to embarrass anyone. You're not trying to hype anyone over anybody else. So your calls are a little more neutral, still with a little bit of inflection here and there. And then as you move up into the college ranks, the pro ranks, then you are going to have even more of a homer effect. So you just have to understand where you are and adjust your game call to that situation.
Great points. Great points for all of us to hear. Now, to shift gears a little bit, you told me you were part of the NBA 2K. What was that process like?
It was incredible. It was a little 007-ish. You mentioned the NDA, and so when they first reached out to me, I got an email saying that, and it was actually one of the subsidiary companies said that they wanted to discuss a project with me. I'm like, okay, a project.
Yeah.
What is that project? I don't know what it is. So I emailed back and I was like, let's have a conversation and talk about that. So I had a Zoom call, and during that Zoom call, they said, we want to discuss, a possible project with us and with 2K Sports. I'm like, okay, but before we discuss what the project is, we need you to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Really?
And I'm like, what am I getting myself into? Like, what is going on here? But I said, okay, send it to me and I'll take a look at it. Now, when they sent it to me, I also, I hate to even think like this, but we live in a day and age where there are a lot of scams. Scams are prevalent everywhere. So when I tell you that every person that sent me an email and every name that I saw, I Googled them. I went on Instagram. I wanted to make sure these people were legit and this was the real deal. And I had also reached out to a couple of other PA announcers as well, and they were like, this is legit. They reached out to me the other day. So I signed the NDA. They explained the whole thing. They were putting all of the PA announcer voices in the game. And I actually got to fly out to LA and recorded for that first year. I recorded for 7 straight days, went into the studio for like 4 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Just doing names and doing names, 3-point calls, foul calls, literally like every Hall of Famer that you can think of. They have their names in the game as well. College players, high school players that may have gone into the NBA. We were doing it all to make sure they covered all of their bases. And
makes sense.
I have been very fortunate. So I've been very fortunate to have my voice in 3 games, NBA 2K22, 23, and the upcoming 26. And so it was just an absolutely wonderful experience. And when fans find out, they're like, "Oh man, yeah, I'm gonna play the game, and I'm gonna use you." And I had a couple of people send me screenshots, and they're like, "Man, this is awesome."
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is it like for you to hear your own voice? I know sometimes we hear our own voice and we're our own worst enemy, but when you hear your own voice on that video on the NBA 2K, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I need to buy a game system because I have copies of all 3 games that I'm on, but I don't own a video game system. I haven't had one for years. And so I actually need to buy one so I can play it. But in hearing the clips of me on the game, it's just surreal because, I was the only child sitting in my room creating basketball leagues and wrestling leagues and all of this stuff. And I was the play-by-play guy. I'm the PA announcer, and to actually hear yourself on an actual video game.
Well, yeah,
it is so humbling. It's a humbling experience.
Oh, it has to be. Now, we ask this set of questions to all of our guests. How about an "oh, wow" moment at the mic where that inner fan is just ready to leap out of your skull, but somehow you still have to contain that? Any of those for you?
I contained it a little bit, but April 11th, 2018, Minnesota Timberwolves, Denver Nuggets, game 82. If the Timberwolves win, they make the playoffs for the first time in 13 years. And the game went to overtime. And the Timberwolves ended up winning. And at the final horn, the whole arena just went up. It was deafening in there. They had the word "clinched" flashing on all of the video boards. And at the end of any home win, whether it's in Minnesota or Charlotte, I get on the mic and I'll go, "Tonight's final score," and I'll give the final score. I think I held that "tonight" for like 15 seconds because I was in the moment. The fans were in the moment, and the roof was already lifting off the building, and I just wanted it to explode. And anything that I could do in that moment, I wanted to light the match. And so that was my moment. So that was a oh wow moment where I contained it a little bit, but not really. But most of those moments where it's a containing it would be when the opposing team superstar fouls out of the game. I have to contain that.
Yeah.
For example, foul on 34, Giannis Antetokounmpo, his 6th, and I just want to get on the mic and like, "Yeah, he's gone." Can't do that. So I have to kind of bring that down. So, it's just one of those things. But yeah, that oh wow moment where I kind of let it go a little bit was game 82. That'll always stick in my mind.
Completely understandable. The pent-up energy had to be immeasurable at that point. Now, on the other side of that coin, an "oh no" moment where something comes out of your mouth and you instantly want it back. Any of those? And how did you move on?
I had 2 main moments that this happened. First season in Minnesota, there was a promotion that in the fourth, and most NBA teams have a promotion like this. In the fourth quarter of the game, if the opposing team misses 2 free throws, normally get something. They get free Chick-fil-A, a free something, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. In Minnesota, that particular year, there was this yogurt, cherry berry yogurt, that everybody in the building would get free cherry berry at a local store the next day with their ticket stub. So that promotion was in the fourth quarter. Nobody with the team told me, and I didn't bother to ask, whether or not that promotion extended into overtime. So overtime comes. Yeah. Overtime comes, and one of their players goes to the line. So my key for the fans to let them know that this was a moment, I would go, "It's cherry berry time," and everybody's like, "Yeah," and they start cheering. So the guy goes to the line, I get on the mic, "It's cherry berry time," and my boss, who was sitting next to me, and I'm going to name him Chris Vanderbeek, because I love Chris, wherever you are out there, I love you to death. Chris is sitting there. He's got the headset on. He looks over at me with this frantic look in his eyes. "It's not cherry berry time. It's not cherry berry time." I never missed a beat. I opened the mic back up, leaned in, went, "Correction, it's not cherry berry time." Boo! 19,000 people just let me have it. And it was hilarious. All I could do was laugh because it's like these people wanted their yogurt. And then there was one more time during COVID when the fans were just coming back into the building. So we had about 200 first responders that came back into the building. And so my line was to all of our first responders from the Minnesota Timberwolves and the state of Minnesota, "Thank you for your support." Well, right before that, during the timeout, I had been talking to the official scorer. We had been talking about Big Ten basketball.
Okay.
Maryland is my alma mater, so I was talking heavily about Maryland. He was talking about Minnesota. We were going back and forth. So when I get on the mic to do that read, I went, "From the Minnesota Timberwolves and the state of Maryland, thank you for your support." And immediately I went, that wasn't right.
Oh,
Right?
no.
So the president of basketball operations at the time, Gerson Rosas, was sitting directly across the arena from me. He looks over at me like, what's going on? And I went, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And he was like, "That's okay." And he started laughing because the one thing that I was told when I got up there, as long as you don't drop an F-bomb on the mic, as long as you don't curse on the mic, you're going to keep your job. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So, but those are things that you just do and you're like, "Oh no." And you keep rolling.
Yeah. But to have people like that who say, it was a mistake, move on. People make mistakes. People are going to learn from it and move on. And for those people to have that trust in you has to give you such a reassuring feeling. It has to be amazing. Now,
It
going
really
back
does.
to those. No, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
go
I just wanted to say, I just wanted to say one thing in that regard for everybody out there that is listening to this. Key thing, if you're reading a script and if you do stumble over something, you forget a word, you stumble over it, whatnot, remember, the fans out there don't have your script.
That's right.
So if you just, as long as the point of what you're saying gets across, keep going. They're never going to know.
Right.
And if you go into it with that, you take a lot of pressure off yourself trying to make sure that every single solitary word is perfect.
Yes, absolutely. Great advice. It's happened to all of us. It's happened to the best of us and the worst of us. It's going to happen. And you're right. As long as we accept it and move on and make the effort to fix it, we're good. We're good. Now, with all those folks that have helped you along the way, all the way up from second grade, get out of my classroom, to up with the Timberwolves and with the Hornets now, we always give our guests the opportunity to pay all that help forward. So if I would give you the opportunity to give us some advice, somebody maybe starting their first youth league game, or somebody who's picking up a semi-pro or a pro gig somewhere or something in between, what would that advice be to us?
It would be to have fun, to be yourself. Don't get on the mic trying to be someone else. Don't try to be John Mason. Don't try to be Mark Denman. Don't try to be Kyle Speller. Don't try to be Shawn Parker. Get on the microphone. Be yourself. Be a fan. Tell the people what you see. Listen to the people that are paying you. You're their voice. You are their voice. they are putting out a certain product out there. So deliver the product that they want, but use your own flair. They will appreciate that. You will grow as an announcer. Also, take constructive criticism. It's not personal. They just want to make sure that their product is the best that it possibly can be. I have gotten constructive notes from the Timberwolves, from the Hornets, and you take those notes, you incorporate it, and you keep going. It's going to make you a better announcer. And also, don't be afraid to ask for advice or help. You know, go to my website, get my contact information, reach out to me. I'll be happy to share anything that I have with you. I have charts and foul sheets and whatnot. I will share it in order to help make this whole industry that much better.
Great advice. Great advice. Now, I have one more question before we go. It's apparent to me that you love what you do. You love working at what you do. And in saying that, I may have just answered my own question, but when it's all said and done, Shawn, what keeps you coming back to the mic?
It's the fans. It's the fans, because the fans are just so great. You know, when you go to a sporting event, you are going to be entertained. You know, life is tough. You're trying to escape, you know, or step away from whatever went on in the 9 to 5 and on your trip to the arena, and you just want to go in there and have a good time. And I love it when people have a good time and when I have a part in that. So the fans keep me coming back. You know, I tell people that I joke that I'm trying to run for mayor of Spectrum Center because I'm walking around shaking hands, you know, saying hello. And, you know, I absolutely love going in and talking to the fans and going in, talking to the security people and the ushers and everybody that helps the game experience. They are the reason why I go in there and do what I do. I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction from people saying, man, I had fun. You know, you all entertained me. You know, while I'm sitting here, shout out to my fellow arena hosts in Charlotte and all around the league, because, you know, you are truly doing the Lord's work, entertaining people and giving them a reason to come into the arena to just have a good time.
Exactly. Yes. Fantastic. Shawn, this has been a treat. So, folks, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of PAA Game Day. And again, that special thanks goes out to our guest, Shawn Parker of the Charlotte Hornets. So, Shawn, thanks again for taking some time out of your valuable day.
Thank you so much, Tom.
And for all of you out there watching and listening, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to check out Shawn's website for all of his resources, as well as ours, publicaddressannouncer.org. We've got all those resources for you, from game forms, referee signals, job listings, pronunciation guides, our free video tutorial series, Announcing the Game. And after the show, drop us a review if you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, or maybe on YouTube. Or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, do the same. Drop us a review. We're always looking for that constructive feedback that Shawn referred to as we look to prepare our next podcast, when I'll be interviewing James Woolard, the public address announcer for the Seattle Sounders of the MLS. And be sure to share this with others out there who may want to learn more about the voice that they hear in the arena, but they seldom get to know. So until next time, I'm Tom Winiecki, and I can't wait to hear you on the mic.